The following program is a Creative Magic Network production.
You're listening to the Frederic Byé Show, where sky is the limit and space is the place. Here's your host, Frederic Byé.
Alrighty, hello everybody. Welcome. Come on in, sit down, relax, put your earbuds on. This is the Frederic Byé Show, and welcome. This radio podcast is about unleashing your creativity. We talk to experts. We step into the unknown. It is an inspirational, magical, intuitive radio podcast as we chat with charismatic enigmas. That's right, artist people from around the globe. Musicians, singers, radio hosts, business people, photographers, everything in between. I am Frederic Byé, the man of the hour, the man with the power. Hey, I'm too sweet to be sour. I'm funky like a monkey. I sting like a bee. Produce sweet honey, and I am pretty. I am your favorite French knocker. And today we're going to have a fascinating interview as usual, of course, but it's going to be special today. We're going to talk to a guest that we had before on the show twice, and he just released another book. His name is Jeff Rasley. He's the author. His new book is Monsters of the Midway, 1969, Sex, Drugs, Rock and Roll, Viet Nam, Civil Rights, and Football. It is a historical fiction, a comedy, and a romance set at the University of Chicago, and the narrative is about the struggle of the star of the University of Chicago's football team to cope with the cultural revolution on a campus, a 2-year losing streak, and a girlfriend who hates football. All our girlfriends seem to hate football for some reason, but anyway. And so welcome to the show, Jeff. How are you today?
Thank you, Fred. Good to be back with you.
Awesome.
And how I am today is I'm cold because the furnace in our house went out this morning.
Yeah. And so, tell us what you've been up to, man, because you always do a lot of interesting things. Okay, you're right, and this book is it's quite a long book, and it's a big book, but you write a lot and you do other activities. What's been up with you?
Well, I think I've talked with you before about our Bassa Village Foundation, which is a foundation that works with a remote village in this remote area of Nepal. And so for the last year and a half or so, we've been raising money to help rebuild that village from the 2015 earthquakes, which is complete. And so I've been organizing a group to trek to Bassa Village this coming fall and have a big party with the villagers to celebrate the rebuilding of their village. And then some of us will trek on up towards Mount Everest to climb a mountain called Mira Peak on the way to Mount Everest. And so that's been taking up some of my time. And as you said, I finished this book, Monsters of the Midway, 1969, a month ago now. And, other things, I'm on the board of 5 nonprofits, so there's always some meeting, committee work to deal with that.
Yeah. So you're a busy guy, and you find the time to write, and obviously writing is your passion, and I'm just curious. I don't know if I asked you this question before, but why do you write? Like, why? What does it bring to you? Because you don't have to write, but you write. Why?
It feels good. I only write what I think I have. I only write when I think I have something worth saying and something that seems meaningful to me to express. Thankfully, a law practice brought me financial security. So when I quit practicing law a few years ago, I've been able to focus my energy and creativity on things that I really care about. So to answer the question most directly, I write because it feels good to me and because I think I have something and hope I have something worth reading by other people.
Right. All right, so let's dive into your book. Okay, obviously it's about football, but it's not just about football. It's about introspection. It's about, all your books, it seems to be about introspection. And, there's a spiritual, philosophical side to your books, it seems, in your style. So talk to us, first of all, a little bit about what the book is about.
Okay. Yeah, well, on a kind of a universal spiritual level, the book, like many, maybe all my books, are about the tension between individualism and community. The fundamental value of personal freedom, personal expression, liberty to live life as you want to live it, versus the tension of being part of a community and finding meaning through being a member of a community. And in this case, it's about a football player trying to resolve that tension in terms of his desire for individual freedom, but to fit in with the team, to find a role as a member of a team, as a member of a university community, and also to figure out whether he wants to make a commitment to a girlfriend and to have a relationship that's long-term, is more meaningful than just sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Mm-hmm. Right. And why did you write that book?
Well, I wrote it for a couple reasons. One is it's inspired by actual experiences that I had.
I didn't know you were a football player. You were a football player back in the 70s, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, back in the 70s. The University of Chicago, where I went to college, had been a superpower in American football when American football was really first getting started back in the late 19th century and early 20th century. And then in 1939, the university dropped football, even though it had 3 national championships, 7 conference championships, 3 undefeated teams, and the winningest coach in American college football history, a guy named Amos Alonzo Stagg. But the university had decided that football was really just, it was too expensive, waste of money to mainly to maintain this great big stadium. And also because the University of Chicago had become an intellectually elite institution, which didn't want to give sports scholarships and wanted its students, whether they were athletes or not, to be top-notch scholars. And as time went on, it was becoming less competitive. It started losing games against big state schools who gave all their team members scholarships and had much lower admission standards. So the university in 1939 dropped football, but 30 years later, in 1969, the school started a varsity football team again. And it struggled really for quite a few years to get back to having a competitive team. And I played on the team in 74 and 75, and it was still really struggling to become a competitive team. And we actually lost every game for 2 years. And my very last game, before I graduated, we finally won a game. We beat Marquette University. And it was the last game coached by a truly lovely old fellow by the name of Wally Hass, who had worked for decades to get football resumed or resurrected at the University of Chicago. And it was the last game he coached. And it also made his 100th victory as a college coach because he had coached at other schools. But so there was this personal sort of interesting and emotional experience attached to being part of this team, which struggled so hard just to win one game, and to win one for our old coach before he retired. And in 1974, People magazine wrote a story about the team. And the title of the article was "The Worst Team in College Ball," which was not exactly an uplifting way to describe these college kids trying to resurrect football. But
when I think about that, I often think about the coach. How does the coach? Because in many ways, It comes down to the coach oftentimes is blamed for the failure of a team,
Well, that's right. And at the University of Chicago, a lot of faculty members, students didn't even want football to resume. In fact, the first game was delayed because students rushed out onto the field with signs that said "ban the ball," and tried to prevent football being resurrected because they thought it was a kind of an expression of the fascist establishment. And so he had all sorts of struggles on various levels to get the game resumed at Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. Once again, we're here with Jeff Rasley. He's the author of Monsters of the Midway, 1969, Sex, Drugs, Rock and Roll, Vietnam, Civil Rights, and Football. It is a historical fiction, a comedy, and a romance set at the University of Chicago. All right. So your book has a lot of obviously historical, some of them are facts, some of them are fiction. We're not sure, but, talk to us a little bit about the research, because you talk a lot about the school system, and politics a little, like you even talk about Islam at some point, and talk to us a little bit about the research to write this book, the process of writing. Did you do a lot of research?
Yeah, the university opened up its archives to me. So, there was, documents about, the battle over getting rid of football, so back in the 1930s, and then in the 1960s, the battle to resume football. So both of those were huge, contentious disputes within the university community. And, interestingly, in the 1939, the forces that wanted to get rid of football and really focus the university completely on academics, won. And then in 1969, during, the Viet Nam era, civil rights era, the forces that wanted to resume football, managed to win. And so in the book, there are photographs back from the very earliest days of American football, going back into the 1890s, and then photos from the 60s and 70s during that Vietnam civil rights era, when football was resumed, but there were protests against football, and there was a strike on campus related to the Vietnam War and just the whole anti-establishment movement going on at that time.
Mm-hmm. When we read your book, we're never sure if it's fact or because it's almost like it's written as, I don't want to say biography, but it's written. Yeah, it's almost like it could be a real nonfiction book, And I like these kinds of books because you always wonder, is this true or really? I'm going to look into it. You kind of mix both. Talk to us about the inspiration behind your writing, because I'm curious. I have an idea, I think, of who your inspiration is or inspirations are, but who are some of the authors that, influenced your writing?
Well, my favorite author of all time is Marcel Proust.
Okay.
And so
I didn't have him in mind.
I consider having read I think it's 2,400 pages of In Search of Lost Time by
What does he write? Because I don't even know him. What does he write?
He's a French writer from the 19th century who wrote what many literary critics consider the greatest novel of all time, and it's 2,400 pages long.
What is it?
The original title was Remembrance of Things Past, but for the English version, but more modern translators say that, or conclude that the title really should be In Search of Lost Time, is a better translation of the French. But so I spent 6 months reading that book a number of years ago, just on my own, not for a class or anything. And it was like climbing a Himalayan peak. I mean, it was a tremendous struggle, and at the same time, it was this fantastic feeling of accomplishment. And this book, as you just said, you can't really tell what's fiction and what's nonfiction, because it's written from the point of view of somebody who is an author.
Yeah.
And what he describes is based very much on his own life, but it's fictionalized, and it's deeply psychological and spiritual, and full of social commentary about his life and times, which was around World War I.
Okay. I thought you were going to say Paulo Coelho.
No, but there's an Italian author that I'm currently reading named Elena Ferrante, who reminds me very much of Proust, and she's written this magnum opus 4-book series, and a 5th one is supposed to come out in the spring. And I've read the first 3, and I'm into the 4th right now. And similarly, it's hard to tell what's truth and what's fiction in her writing.
But you know Paulo Coelho? Did you ever read his work?
I don't, and I'm sorry.
You don't?
And embarrassed. No,
God.
But okay, and now I'm embarrassed too. You've embarrassed your guest, Fred. But I will look him up.
Okay, The Alchemist.
I've heard that title.
Yeah, I hope so. No, just kidding. But you should really check him out. I think.
Now, is that the one that was made into a movie?
No.
Okay.
No, actually, he refused to turn his books into movies. There's only one book that turned into a movie, but and the title is Veronica Wants to Die. That's the title, but really his most popular work is The Alchemist, and there are so many other works that he wrote that are amazing. But it's spiritual. You should check him out. I think you'll like him.
How do you spell his last name?
Coelho, Coelho.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that.
All right, talk to us a little bit about your writing routine. Do you write every morning? When does your creativity come to you?
Yeah. Well, when I was practicing law and I was raising, with my wife, 2 boys, the only time I could write was late at night. And so that's what I did. And then as I drew down my law practice and had more time, I tried to write just like I had worked, and would start in the morning. And I'm not really a morning person. And I actually feel more creative at night, and maybe it was just because I got into that routine. So now that my schedule is pretty flexible, I write whenever I feel like it, but I still tend to write mostly at night.
Okay, cool. And all right, so once again, we're here with Jeff Rasley. He's the author of Monsters of the Midway, 1969, Sex, Drugs, Rock and Roll, Vietnam, Civil Rights, Football. It is a historical fiction, a comedy, and a romance set at the University of Chicago, The narrative is about the struggle of the star of the University of Chicago's football team to cope with the cultural revolution on campus, a two-year losing streak, and a girlfriend who hates football. And guys, right before continuing this conversation, if you have a passion, something that fuels your curiosity, well, on top of getting fascinating interviews such as this one straight to your inbox when you subscribe to our free Creative Magic community, you will get super cool exclusive gifts in return, such as the ebook Happiness Quotes by the ambassador of happiness herself, Maura Sweeney, one of our hosts. And this small little book is an anthology of 25 inspirational quotes about living a happy life from the inside out. It is cataloged by Maura Sweeney herself and further enhanced by her reflections. She offers information, anecdotal stories, and more to help underscore each contributor's quote. And she also provides suggestions to help you incorporate these maxims into part of your mental landscape. You can subscribe for free at FredericByé.com. That's Frederic with a C, Byé like bye-bye.com. All right, the main character is Jack. And Jack is an interesting guy. Jack is a virile guy. I'm going to screw that word up, but, and at the same time, he's an introspective guy. And I like how you start the story you write, because he had to quit football at some point. And he said one reason he quit was based on the cost-benefit analysis. The cost of giving up every autumn to football was not worth the benefit. He was already a three-sport letterman for the Owls in football, swimming, and track. And what little spare time he had, Jack loved to hike the hills and fish the streams of the backwoods around his home in Jackson County, Indiana. When he finished with summer chores, he also loved to sit under the big oak tree in the front yard of the Blair's farmhouse reading a book. Solitude with nature and improving his mind through reading touched Jack Blair's soul in a way that playing football did not. Talk to us a little bit about that character, because obviously he's the main character. He's a deep character. How did you come up with him?
Well, in all modesty, I have to admit, to some extent, he is based on me, and some of his experiences were my experiences. But I also have to admit, he's a much better athlete than I ever was. He's bigger, stronger, and faster. But like me, I grew up on the edge of a river, on the edge of town, and across the river was farm country. And as a kid, I loved, being out in nature. Like he says, hiking the hills and catching frogs in the river and just enjoying the outdoors. On the other hand, being on a team for a kid, boy or girl, is a really great experience. Not only do you develop athletic skills, but you develop social skills. It develops values like loyalty, hard work, and you learn about commitment. And that's, Jack's struggle throughout the book is to what does he want to commit his time and energy to commit his life, and to how valuable is doing something like playing football. Mm-hmm. So, you picked a neat little section to read, because it really is revealing of the struggle Jack's going through. And in high school, he decides that the benefit isn't worth being on a football team. Yeah. And then in college, he reverses that and decides that it is, but he also decides he doesn't want to go to practice very often. So he figures out a way to be on the team, but not fully committed to the team, because he routinely skips practice.
Mm-hmm. You say that being in football, it gives you a sense of loyalty and hard work, and teamwork and mission driven a little bit. It's when you're part of a team, it's camaraderie, and do you find that that's, I think from my experience, when you shift from that to the corporate world and you were in law, I think that's missing, because then it becomes oftentimes all about profit or all about like, and I don't know where we're drifting off the subject a little bit, but it's just, it reminds me of that, and this is what I feel. Do you see the same thing here?
Yeah, although I think with the best companies, it's very similar to what you experience on a team. Mm-hmm. And, I've been on teams where it wasn't about profit, because I've never played sports professionally, but there were definitely teams where it was more about individualistic, ego-centered drive than teamwork. And I've been on teams where it was all about teamwork. And, and I think there's similar companies that some are all about profit, and others are, have very much a culture of teamwork. And, for somebody who would be looking for a job, I think that's a really important analysis to make in terms of a company you'd be considering.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to the story. I find Jack has a feminine side to him. You're right that he was too sensitive for a farm boy. Was it done on purpose, or, do you see that? Do you see the same thing?
Well,
because I think that's part of the conflict. You talk about he's struggling, but the struggle you talk about is inner struggle oftentimes. You know what I mean? It's this balance of, and it seems that it's like the male, hard side conflicts with the feminine side,
Yeah, I think that is a useful way to analyze it. Although it's also sort of, is it accurate to divide that into masculine and feminine? I think to some extent it definitely is, and we do associate nurturing, feminine. You could even say the connectedness of teamwork with. Yeah.
This is all I mean. Feminine doesn't mean, it just means that feminine's more creative. It's more sensitive. It's more,
Yeah. And in sports, the manly sports, we even call them manly sports, like football, there's, a real tension there. Because on the one hand, you need to be sensitive and connected with your teammates. You need to be creative in how you play ball. On the other hand, the ethos is very much, being tough, being hard, not showing emotion, just or the only emotion that's appropriate is rage or glee if you win. But we tend to think of sensitivity as not part of that, although it really is.
Right. Describe Jack's relationship with his father. His father seems to be emotionally absent. What's the inspiration behind it? Because I think that's he's more into, he wants to, anything that has things that have nothing to do with agriculture, he doesn't care for, really. Talk to us a little bit about that relationship.
Yeah, well, his father is very much male in the way we were just talking about. Yeah. He doesn't have the emotional sensibility to connect with his son. And the only way he can interact is to talk about farming. And so he's set up as a really kind of a one-dimensional figure, and a figure that Jack is trying very hard not to emulate. Mm-hmm. That on the one hand, he respects his father, who's, on this hard scrabble farm, has kept food on the plate for the family. But on the other hand, Jack very definitely does not want to grow up to be that sort of one-dimensional person.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right. All right, once again, we're here with Jeff Rasley. He's the author of Monster of the Midway 1969, Sex, Drugs, Rock and Roll, Viet Nam, Civil Rights, and Football. It is a historical fiction, a comedy and a romance set at the University of Chicago. And the narrative is about the struggle of the star of the University of Chicago's football team to cope with the cultural revolution on campus, a 2-year losing streak, and a girlfriend who hates football. All right. And by contrast, his mother, Eleanor, described her, which is complete opposite of her husband.
Yeah, she's a very vivacious, very loving mother. The center of her life is her kids and taking care of the home. But she's not just a traditional modern mother and housewife, because she runs the business too. They have an egg farm. Chickens are part of the farm, and she runs that entirely herself. So, in a way, she's a very modern woman, although set in this, small town farm in southern Indiana. But she's, not only vivacious, but thoughtful and caring and sensitive. So she certainly is a contrast, and, again, kind of setting off the masculine versus the feminine. Mm-hmm. And yet she's an influence, a strong influence on Jack, but he's also very different from her in some ways too. Yeah.
Why did you choose this time of history, the 60s? Because you seem to like the 60s. in this book, your other books. Talk to us a little bit about why did you choose this time in history?
Well, I was a child. I was too young to really be engaged in the Cultural Revolution when it was happening in the 68 and 69 are kind of looked on by historians as this real tipping point in modern culture, where the sexual revolution, civil rights, ban the bomb, awareness of how dangerous the world really is with countries having nuclear weapons. And so much of it kind of came to a point in the anti-war struggle of Viet Nam, because that somehow assimilated all these other issues and galvanized so many young people. So as a kid, turning on the TV, watching the news every night, which my family did, we would see these huge demonstrations out in the streets. We'd see the riots in African-American neighborhoods, and it just seemed like the culture was undergoing a revolution. And yet at the same time, I lived in this small town in northern Indiana where families knew each other for generations. Life was very stable, but the foundation really started to shake. And by the time I was in high school, my junior year, there was a student strike, which was actually led by my older brother, where the students walked out to protest the dress code, and somehow our high school dress code was associated with the Vietnam War and civil rights in our own minds. And by the time I was in college, to some extent, the happy hippie aspect of the Cultural Revolution had passed, and it had taken on a much darker side, with Altamont, the riot at a rock festival, the Stones rock festival, where kids were beaten up and one was killed by bikers, Hell's Angels, and drugs had become not just kind of a pleasurable escape, but we're starting to, seriously affect crime and people's lives in very negative ways. And so it was a very fascinating time. And, I think what came out of that Cultural Revolution was a real mixed bag. Human rights were expanded. Just our consciousness of what being human was expanded to accept ways of life that had previously been unacceptable. But at the same time, particularly drugs have left a dark imprint that is still affecting society in negative ways today, and that's when it really expanded from just this kind of underground small minority of people involved with the drug culture to affecting a huge portion of the population. And in Indiana, we have small towns which were like the ones I grew up in, which are now have been ruined by meth and heroin and the side effects of drug addiction. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it's again, there's this tension of the light and the dark, which I found fascinating to observe when I was young, and then to kind of live through the after effects of it in the mid-'70s.
And now 2017.
Indeed.
Yeah. Do you see a big contrast between today and back then? I just feel that sometimes back then you were more confrontational. You're more when people were not happy about something, they would riot, they would do things. Now, I just feel like, people, you see all these manifestations, but I just feel like it's a lot of chatter, but very little doing, if I'm not mistaken. You know what I mean? This is just how I see it. Am I right, or?
No, I think you're right, certainly on one level, and maybe more than one. But, one thing that's different is social media has created this outlet so that people can express themselves through social media without going out in the street.
Well, that's the thing, but that's the problem, because when you just go do it through social media, to me, it's not enough. It's just chatter. It's like going to your boss and just complaining. Okay, well, you're not, you know what I mean? There's no, I don't know, there's just no action. There's just no, it's easy actually to just go on Facebook or Twitter and tweet something,
I do. And I agree with you that a lot of energy is being spent that way, and that it ends up being nothing more than digitation going off in space.
Yeah.
Now, the demonstrations that involved millions of people across the globe last week, which have been inspired by the election of Donald Trump, we may be seeing a return to that more confrontational kind of activism.
Yeah, right. All right, Coach Walter Haas. He's an interesting guy, too. I'd like to talk about him a little bit. You write, at some point in the book, you write, the voiceover in the movie began when you are young. And that's what he's thinking. When you are young, you look at life like it's a gigantic room with doors lining the walls, hundreds of doors. Talk to us a little bit about him, because he has big influence on Jack.
Well, Wally Haas is an actual person.
Yeah.
He's deceased, but he was the coach.
Is it Walter or is it Wally?
His name is Walter, but everybody called him Wally.
Okay, I see.
Which fit, because he was just this sweet, plump guy who had been a real football star when he was in college. But by the time I knew him, he was an old man getting ready to retire. But he was unlike any football coach I'd ever had. Football coaches tend to be, kind of hard guys. They want to exemplify the toughness that they want to instill in their players. And Wally Haas was a gentle, sweet soul. And he was dealing with something that would be the nightmare of most coaches, which was a football team that was not supported very much by its university. In fact, many people within the university community didn't want it to exist. And he was dealing with players, many of whom did not make the commitment to the team that's expected of college athletes. That when I was actually on the team, many of us, including me, did skip practice regularly. And the university had a rule that no athlete could be disciplined in any way for missing practice or a game for an academic reason. Mm-hmm. So you could schedule a class to conflict with practice 2 or 3 days a week. If you had a test or a paper on Monday, you could skip the game because you needed to study or write. And then, that combined with this being the late 60s and early to mid 70s when this cultural revolution is happening. And whereas when Wally had been an athlete, being a jock was really cool. During this period of time, being a jock was not necessarily cool. In fact, it might be considered uncool, depending on your, cultural milieu. And so it's just this mess that he has to deal with and somehow try to get this kind of ragtag rabble of guys that came out for this struggling team to mold them into a team that not only can hopefully somehow win a game, but comes out of this experience feeling like this is really a meaningful part of their college years. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of, and it goes back to that. Well, how does he win the cost benefit analysis? How does he convince these young men that playing football in this crazy cultural milieu that the benefit is worth the cost?
Once again, we're talking with Jeff Rasley. He's the author of Monsters of the Midway, 1969, Sex, Drugs, Rock and Roll, Vietnam, Civil Rights, and Football. It is a historical fiction, a comedy and a romance set at the University of Chicago. And guys, right before continuing this conversation, are you an Amazon shopper, guys? I will put up the book on frederickbyé.com. If you're an Amazon shopper, when you pick up his book from our website at frederickbyé.com, Amazon kicks back a few bucks to the show, and it helps cover production costs. No additional cost to you. No hidden fees. No nothing. So if you like what you hear, you can help by going over to frederickbyé.com. That's Frederick with a C, Byé like bye-bye.com. Click on Jeff's page, the Frederic Byé Show page, and click the link to his book. It is really that simple. All right. What do you want the reader to get out of the book? When the person reads the last line, what do you want to get away with?
Well, mainly enjoyment, to enjoy a good story, but also to have learned some history, because there's history not just about the University of Chicago and about the city of Chicago and about football, but also that time.
Yeah, because it's fascinating that time, because it's when you're right about the politics in the educational system. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I think that's an important point that you make. There's a lot of discrimination, and talk to us a little bit about that, because you touch on it in your book.
Yeah, well, the University of Chicago was really revolutionary in its approach to education. There was a time where the university got rid of grades, got rid of the requirement to attend classes.
That's crazy.
It would admit, anyone of any age that could prove that they were intellectually ready to go to college. So there were kids as young as 14 attending college, but who, were academically ready for it. And so it was this laboratory of trying to figure out what's the best way to give young people a college level education where when they graduate, they were true scholars. And that's what the university was trying to figure out, and considered itself kind of a laboratory. And eventually it settled on a couple principles, and one being a very traditional liberal arts philosophy, which is to be an educated person, you got to study everything, all the classical disciplines, from physics and math to philosophy and theology and everything in between. So it developed a common core, which basically has students to this day spending 2.5 years taking required courses before they're allowed to take any electives, because they're supposed to have this very broad liberal arts education. Mm-hmm. So that the kind of the debates within the educational establishment are played out within the book. I am a little surprised you haven't asked anything about the girlfriend, because I think she's one of the most interesting characters in the book, and her relationship with Jack is an interesting one, because she's a radical feminist and he's a football player. So that's kind of a fun romance.
Yeah, but you don't want to give away too much, but yeah, right. And you're right. And all right, so and to finish this, you touch on Islam too a little bit. Is there a lot of difference between the perception of Islam now compared to that time, you find? Because at that time you had Muhammad Ali and you had,
Yeah, well, Ali is a character who shows up in the book.
Yeah.
And has this kind of interesting tete-a-tete with two of the guys on the team and their girlfriends. And in Hyde Park, where the University of Chicago is, Ali lived for many years right near the university, just south of it, and his mosque was just south. I mean, his home was just north of the university, and his mosque was just south in South Shore. So there's this, presence of black Muslims. The Nation of Islam, which commonly called black Muslims, was right there all around the university, although it had almost no influence on the university. And I didn't know myself any black Muslims when I was there that attended. There may have been, but if they were, they had a very low profile. But yet if you went off campus, they had a very high profile, because they were dressed in these black suits, white shirts, black ties, sunglasses, often a fedora, selling the Nation of Islam paper and literature out on the street corners.
Right.
So it's a weird dynamic and relationship, because on the one hand, there's almost none of it. I mean, no relationship within the university community, and yet you step off campus, and on the south side of Chicago at that time, it was a hugely important aspect of the political and social culture.
Right. All right. So thank you so much, Jeff. Hey, to finish this, where can we find you? Where can we buy your book? And what's your next project?
Well, you can find me on the banks of the White River in Indianapolis, which is where I am standing looking out my back window right now. But I have a website, which is my full name, Jeffrey, Jeffrey, Rasley, Rasley.com, and that has my books. It also has information about the foundation in Nepal and trekking and mountaineering in the Himalayas. And of course, all the books are available on Amazon, and this one will be particularly available on your website.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. Another great interview, and much success to you. And we'll keep in touch, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, absolutely. It's a great joy talking to you, Fred, and following your blog and your podcast.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I really appreciate, and have a great weekend.
Thanks. You too, my friend.
All right. Take care, man. Bye-bye. Alrighty, guys. Hey, how was it? Always an interesting guy, a fascinating guy to talk to. Jeff is always cool, calm, collected, and he always speaks about, he loves the 60s, like I said in the interview, and that's just fascinating. I mean, it's a fascinating time, the 60s. It's a chaotic time, and I don't know, it's just a fascinating person just doing his thing, baby. Just doing his thing. All right, guys, time for me to ride off into the sunset. And by the way, I would like to thank those who pledged to our Patreon page. You are really helpful to the show, and we are grateful for your help. In case you're wondering, Patreon is a simple way for you to contribute to the network every single month. I get super cool exclusive rewards in return. I promise you will love the perks. And our Patreon page is at fredericbyé.com. That's Frederic with a C, bye.com. And click Patreon in the header. Money is used to cover our production costs and enhancements and our editing time. You can contribute for as low as $1. $1. Yeah, pretty cool, huh? Also, if you want to do your online shopping, you can do so through our links at fredericbyé.com in the sidebar. No additional cost to you. You can buy Jeff's book, but you can also do your shopping for anything that you like, and it really helps us. No fees, no hidden fees, no nothing. So, check it out. It's in the sidebar, our Amazon link for the USA, Canada, and the UK. Also, we're looking for new hosts in the network. If you're somebody with a positive message, and you're looking to get into the podcast world, hey, give us a shout out. Go in the header. It's written, become a host. And we will help you out. Also, the Creative Magic Store is open and live and well. It's designed with meaning, meant to inspire you, tap into your intuition, and add a little bit of magic into your life. You have DVDs, t-shirts, pillows, mugs, bunch of cool stuff. And so the Creative Magic Store, just click the Creative Magic Store in the header. All right, guys, time for me to get to say bye-bye. It's time for me to do, do a little bit of laundry. I'm going to eat. I'm going to edit this podcast, this episode, and we'll see us next time, guys. Stay safe, and don't forget, live with purpose, passion, fire, in love. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Frederic Byé Show. For more information, go to fredericbyé.com. That's Frederic with a C, bye like bye-bye.com.